The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, July 21st, 2016. I want to start the show with a correction, and the correction is from my Twitter account, and because I have so many Twitter followers, it is worthwhile me doing it a correction. So call this my Department of Corrections. I tweeted out during my prep, that the same were in reference to Charles Kinsey, the black man that was shot by North Miami Police Department. I mistakenly, there was an incident in North Miami Beach Police Department a year ago that had police officers in North Miami Beach used the mugshots of black men as for target practice. I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but I wanted to put it that at the top, so anyone listening who retweeted me and shared it, and it already has a whole lot of tweets, go back and delete it, and I already made a correction. Now, with the correction at the top of the show, welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Obviously, I'm already talking about Charles Kinsey. I had every intention of covering Donald Trump's speech live. However, his time has shifted from originally it was reported this morning that he would be speaking, or at least on the original agenda, that he would be speaking at 9 o'clock. It turns out he is going to be speaking at about 10:15. But we do have excerpts of his speech because his speech, quote unquote, leaked, which basically means Trump put it out so that we can get a preview. You know, I don't think not a whole lot leaks unintentionally. So I think that was on purpose. So we'll talk about some of the excerpts of his speech, which you can expect tonight. We're also going to talk about Charles Kinsey, obviously. I haven't talked about the Republican platform yet because, we'll talk about it tonight. You can join the conversation shortly, 857-600-0518. All right, so let's get to the story of Charles Kinsey. Charles Kinsey, who was working for an assisted care facility, a behavior specialist, was giving care to an autistic patient of his. The patient left and got away from the facility, from the housing, and ended up in the middle of the street. Charles Kinsey went to bring him back. And in the middle of this, someone called 911 and said that there's a black man with a gun. Paraphrasing, this is essentially what happened. And so the police showed up on the scene before Charles Kinsey could get the young man, the autistic man, and take him back. The police showed up on the scene with their guns drawn. At that point, Charles Kinsey laid on the ground on his back, placed his hands in the air, and began to try to explain to the police officers, begging them not to shoot. He explained to the police officers that who he was, why he was in the street, and he began to plead with them, letting him know that what the young man had in his hands, the autistic boy, what he had in his hands was a toy truck and not a gun. All right, I have the video of it, and it's the end of the story is he got shot. 3 shots were fired. 1 shot hit him in the leg, and he survived. So at this point, we could just be grateful that the man survived. Okay, I'm going to play the clip. Here's the clip. And as you can see, he's laying, and for the radio audience, he's laying on the ground, completely flat on his back with his hands in the air. And you can see and he's saying, lay down on the cops are telling him to lay down on your stomach, lay down on your stomach. Okay, correction. Charles is telling the young man to lay down on his stomach. And this continues to go on. He has a toy truck in his hand. I'm a behavior tech in the group home. So he's pleading with the man, the young boy, to please be still because he knows, all right, let me stop it here. This is where the police officers have now shot him, and they have they're placing him under arrest. So he's pleading with the police officers, and more importantly, he's concerned about the young boy. And I'm sorry, he's not a young boy. I think he was a 27-year-old. So he's a young man. He's concerned with his patient. He's doing his job, and he's on his back pleading with the young man, the young autistic man, to please get on your stomach, because he knows that this can go south really quickly if they mistake what the boy had in his hand, the man had in his hands, to be a gun, and it was a toy truck. And so he's pleading with the police officers, saying, this is a toy truck. I am a behavior tech. This boy is in my care. And then he's talking to his patient, saying, please get on the ground. Please lay on your stomach. And ultimately, the police officers shoot 3 times. And I'm so glad that they did not hit, one, that they didn't kill Charles Kinsey, number one. And then number 2, I'm so grateful that they did not kill the patient, the young man. So grateful for that. Ultimately, he got shot in the leg. He's recovering. He's going to be fine. But when he asked the police officer, why did you shoot me? The police officer said, I don't know. And you know what? I believe that the police officer reacted in a situation and doesn't understand why he reacted in that situation, because he doesn't understand the conditioning that he has gone through to make him react and behave in that way. To add insult to injury, to make this story even worse, as if it can be worse, the Dade County police officer, the Dade County Police Union head, is actually 2 different counties, 2 different police associations that are involved with this portion. But the first association head, his name is John Rivera of the Dade County Police Benevolent Association, says that the officer was actually trying to protect Kinsey because he believed the autistic man who was holding a toy truck had a gun, but then he accidentally shot Kinsey instead. So in other words, the reason, because you got to find a reason for the police officer to have shot a man laying on his back. And I said it this morning. I said they're going to do everything they can to find some way to justify this. And there's no level of contortions that these people are not willing to twist their arguments into in order to justify every single thing that a police officer does. And so John Rivera, who leads the Dade County Police Benevolent Association, says that the officer was trying to protect Kinsey because he thought the autistic man had a gun, but he accidentally shot Kinsey instead. First of all, you're full of shit because you're lying, right? You're making up and fabricating a ridiculous story and you expect us to believe it. Kiss our asses. No. But then 2, you're also saying that your police officers who you represent, that they are incompetent, and that instead of hitting a man, a pretty big man sitting up, you hit a man laying on the ground on his back. And the man laying on the ground on his back was actually behind in terms of the aspect. The police officers, let me fix that. The autistic man was closer to the police officers than the gentleman laying on his back. So not only are you lying, playing on our intelligence, thinking we're dumb, but you're also saying that your police officers are so incompetent that they hit somebody almost 5 feet difference. I mean, let me just pull up the image for the love of God. Look at the image. Look at how far apart they are. Look at how far apart they are. And you expect us to believe that the police officers trying to hit the autistic man who's sitting up, a very big target, accidentally hits the man who's laying down. No, they're not 5 feet apart, but they're far enough apart for them not to make that kind of mistake. So they're insulting us. And then you have another, the head of the Miami Fraternal Order of Police, Javier Ortiz, says that he slammed the media because the media and the news stories of the shooting have been all sensationalized. Right? There's nothing to see here. Nothing happened. You guys are just sensationalizing this story. The police unions serve one of the most nefarious and disgusting roles in society, in American society. Their role is to do anything and everything they can to justify anything and everything, all types of behaviors of police officers, and never to correct their police officers, never to bring correction and recommendations for improvement. No, they always find a way to justify every behavior. Police, benevolent associations, the unions, the fraternal orders, they are all there to be a repugnant, public-facing voice of the very worst of the police departments. At least at a minimum, that's what we always get of them, because every time they have to come public and say something, it's because there's somebody that their police officer shot. And I'm sure they do nice things in the community, and I've donated to them back in the past. I get the Fraternal Order of Police thing in the mail, and I'll send something in the mail. So I'm sure that there's some good things that they do, right? Okay, good. Congratulations. But when they get on the news, they get on the news because one of their officers has shot somebody, and their job in the public's eye is for them to justify everything that police officer did, which to me makes it seem and makes me conclude that their role is just one of whitewashing, justifying, propagandizing everything that happens and comes from police departments. So John Rivera, who's the head of the Dade County Police Benevolent Association, and Javier Ortiz, who's the head of the Miami Fraternal Order of Police, slammed the news story as sensationalization, sensationalism. 857-600-0518. What do you think about this story? Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Yes, hello. This is Jared from Downingtown, PA.
Jared, how's it going? What's on your mind?
And I'd like, I was thinking a lot about the RNC. I just want to change the topic a little bit.
Okay, Jared, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me place you back on a hold. I don't want to change the topics just yet because this is a pretty heavy topic here. So do me a favor. I definitely want your call, but call back in when we're talking about the RNC. That's coming up soon. 857-600-0518. I want to know what you guys think about this, and I want to know what you think about the justification that they gave, the justification that these police benevolent associations gave for this type of behavior. And here's the other thing, right? The last thing I'm going to say about this, and then I'm going to talk about the RNC because that's happening now. But the last thing I'm going to say about this is it keeps happening, and it keeps happening in a way that they say, well, if he had just not been playing with a toy gun, okay, this guy was unarmed and he got shot. And then they say, well, he wasn't an angel and he had a criminal past or he did something wrong. So then the next time somebody gets shot and the person that got shot was a church going guy who never had any arrests, was working for the city, had a college degree, did everything right and got killed by the police anyway. And then they say, well, the next guy, Michael Brown, he didn't really have his hands up. Well, here's now a guy who not only had his hands up, but was laid out on the ground. And still, the police officer had this compelling force, couldn't control himself, didn't know why he was doing it, and shot the man. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Oh, hey, it's Bryce.
Bryce, what's going on, man? What's on your mind?
Going good. Well, obviously, luckily, he did not get killed. But yes, it does keep happening. It's just frustrating. It's like nothing is changing. Nothing has been changing. And I don't know what can be done, because the way that the police unions and the way that certain things are set up and how the system is set up, I don't know what can be done to really fix the problem. I don't know what type of laws or type of executive orders or things that can be done. And basically, I don't know what the Congress, Obama, of course, I don't know what they can do, because even if Obama or anybody come out, go off about what's going on and lay out a plan or push an executive order or do this, I don't know if it's going to even work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's going to get blocked, and I understand, the anger and frustration, but I don't know what all can be pushed out. And one last thing is that, like you were saying before, we need to vote people in that can really bring the change, that can really push it through, that can really get it through, that can really fix it.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else, I don't think not Obama, not Congress. It's more of a local issue and local and government type issues that need to be fixed, and that really bring the change. And one last quick thing, Michael Brown's mom is speaking at the DNC next week.
Oh, wow.
They know about that, right?
Yeah, they have
the
they have the mothers of the movement who are showing up at the DNC. Thanks for the call. Bryce. 857-600-0518. But actually, you said something very important there. You said a couple things that were great, but the takeaway that I want to talk about is what you said, the need to vote. Listen, if there's ever an election that everyone should vote in without question, it's your mayoral election, your local city council, because they are the people who are going to select your 9 times out of 10, unless you have a city manager who is appointed. Even if you have a city manager, right, and you have a weak mayor, but you have a city manager, that city manager is appointed by the mayor and the council. So still, your vote for the mayor and the council directly affects who the city manager or who the mayor selects to be the police chief. And the police chief is the person who is going to set the culture. If anybody is going to change it, it's going to be the mayor and the police chief. And so while we're doing in all the protesting that we're doing, keep in mind your mayor and your police chief. They are the top 2 people responsible for the police culture. And if you have a mayor who doesn't give a damn about your community, and you have a police chief who refuses to see the truth around them, then you're going to continue to see this all the time, every week now, twice a week, and 3 times on the weekends. We see this kind of madness, and people are talking about revolution and taking up arms and violent revolution and all that, and you still haven't voted for mayor when you could change your police department by putting in the right police chief. Because they are the ones who are going to call these officers on the carpet. And not only the police chiefs, you also got to deal with the unions, right? So the unions are not directly accessible by the people. I get that, but you got to start somewhere. And it is a very strong position to start in. Get you a mayor, because a lot of these cities, we're not talking about all Baltimores. We're not talking about all New York cities. We're talking about cities as small as Ferguson, cities as small as North Miami. North Miami is a small city, and they can have an entire culture change. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, my name is Kim.
Hey, how are you?
And Thank you. So my question is, and I have a comment, but my first question is, when the police officer said, "I don't know," I think that the community or his legal team, that they should kind of center everything around the fact that the police officer said, "I don't know," because that can be construed in different ways, and it can actually be used to help their case. So that's just something that I thought immediately when the police officer said, "I don't know." And in terms of secondly, I really believe that we're moving in a direction in the United States to be more like a developing country. I mean, I'm just going to say it, with the police state that we live in, because I've lived in developing countries, and the United States is moving in that direction, in the sense that I felt like in the past, Americans, they felt like if there was a wrongdoing, you could go to the Justice Department or you could go to the criminal system and you could get some normalcy. That's being stripped away. That is being eroded. And I feel like we're moving in that direction. And another thing is, other countries and other people, they see that. So this isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening for the whole world to see. And if America is moving in that direction, what about these other countries? What happens to the justice there? It gets even worse. So I think that this is an American problem, but there's a huge ripple effect.
Yep, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. In on a lot of ways, in terms of the, it always starts from the ground up, right? There's a lot of elements in this election year, not just in dealing with our politics in general, but with the different things that are going on around it. There's a lot of things that are destabilizing, that have a destabilizing effect, that if they are carried out to their extreme, absolutely, it could threaten the stability and the sense of security, the lack of security that most African Americans have in the first place, but that lack of security can lead to significant civil unrest. So it's very important. It's extremely important that we target our moves intentionally to address the problem at the root. And we can't say generic things like we're going to get rid of white supremacy, Hillary. That is not saying, that is not addressing the root. Addressing the root is going to the actual organizations that are doing this and starting there. Yes, the root goes deeper into white supremacy, but white supremacy is a concept and a construct that is continued by real people today. And you cannot stop it by addressing the concept and the construct only. You have to address it by the people, with the people who are carrying it out. And the people carrying it out right now are police. And I don't have to say this, but I am going to say this. No matter what happens, you going out there and shooting a police officer is not the solution. It's only going to exacerbate the problem. So sit down somewhere, and before you talk about doing a violent revolution, just go vote for your mayor and make sure that the mayor that's in office is going to appoint a police chief that's not a Klansman. Appoint a police chief that's not only not racist, but is also very anti-racist, someone who understands the concept of white supremacy and understands the role that the police department has historically played in it. Now tell me those types of changes, real tangible changes, will not affect small cities like Ferguson. Because while and it's a city by city process, we're not going to be able to fix this from the national level and trickle down to the local. No, it's got to be addressed on a city by city, block by block process. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question on this topic?
Hey man, it's David. I just wanted to pull you into our production channel. There's some additional details, but on top of that, I think you may have hit on this. I'm not sure. One point I wanted to really make that, and it's just been boggling my mind, and I think everyone's been making similar points, especially as the excuses out of the police union keep coming out and changing. The length that the organizations, and it's plural because, it's not all happening in the same cities or towns, it's all across the country, but the lengths that they're willing to go to, the police unions or any other body within the police departments, to defend the actions, just completely, it's almost, I don't want to say weirder, but it's becoming crazier and crazier. It goes from someone being dangerous or thinking they had a gun to now they're just the complete ridiculousness of, well, we were trying to shoot an autistic person.
Yeah.
Why? Why were you trying to shoot an autistic person?
And what's the number
Well, he was sitting
I'm glad
there.
You said that.
He was.
Listen, I'm glad you said that, because what's the number of there's a percentage of the people killed by police, I think 40 or 50, it's a large percentage of the people killed by police this year were disabled or had autism or, special needs, because there's this, we're sending the police.
Either.
He posed no threat, but we're sending the police to handle a mental health issue and issues, because we have gutted our mental health systems, and now they're going to address situations that they're completely incompetent at addressing, ultimately killing them. So it's very possible and very probable that this young man with autism could have ended up dead. Thanks for the call, David. I appreciate it. Oh, you got one more thing? Go for it. All right, 1-857-600-0518 if you want to join the conversation. Let me shift gears a little bit because we're running out of time already. I know everybody wants to be in place to watch Donald Trump's amazing speech. So let's actually talk about Donald Trump's speech. And I also want to talk about Donald Trump's party, because this is now the party of Donald Trump. This is his what's that movie? Look at me. I am the captain now. This is Donald Trump's ship. He runs this. So there's snippets of Donald Trump's speech that are coming out tonight. And when I tell you, if Donald Trump manages to stay on script tonight, then Donald Trump, I don't think he's going to win, but he's going to really have Democrats shitting bricks. That's the only thing I can come up with that is most appropriate. So I want to read a couple of the things that are in the speech that was leaked. Here's a quote in regards to the black community. Again, I quote, this is Donald Trump. This is what he's supposed to say tonight. I tell you the plain facts that have been edited out of your nightly news and your morning newspaper. Nearly 4 in 10 African-American children are living in poverty, while 58% of African-American youth are not employed. 2 million more Latinos are in poverty today than when the president took his oath of office less than 8 years ago. All right. That's one of the things he's going to say. Great talking point. First of all, let me stop there. That's a great talking point. That is something, it's pretty much, I can't vouch for all of his numbers, but I do know that is absolutely the trend. The poverty in the black community is out of control. Unemployment, black youth unemployment is above 50%, definitely. So he's pointing out some things that are true. Here's the sleight of hand, because there's always a sleight of hand with every politician. With Donald Trump, he is looking to continue, not even continue, he's looking to further the exact same economic principles that created the situation in the first place. Now, let's not pretend that the problems and the economic problems in the Latino and the African-American community started with President Obama. Let's start there. It started many years ago, and it has a lot more to do with our history than it does the economic paradigm under which we live. right? So we're not going to address the historical component, right? They're never going to talk about reparations. They're never going to talk about all of the systemic things that have put African Americans historically at a disadvantage economically. So forgetting that conversation, let's talk about the economic paradigm, the Ronald Reagan, the economic paradigm that we live under, right? You know, the problem with President Obama's economic policies is not that it's a Democratic policy or that it's a left-leaning liberal tax and spend policy. Quite to the contrary, President Obama's economic policies are not that far away from Republican policies. Let me qualify that. Sensible Republican policies. And we're not dealing with sensible Republicans anymore. But he can point out, Donald Trump can point out the problems in the black community that exist and continued underneath President Obama. But the subtext that he's not telling you is that not only is he going to continue the same economic principles of President Obama, he's going to expand them and go even further. He's going to further gut our safety nets. He's going to further cut taxes and gut the tax base for any economic programs. He's going to further exacerbate the problem of globalization and the overexposure of labor here in the United States to the global forces, putting low wage labor here at odds with in competition with low wage labor overseas. More importantly, he's talking about, listen, Donald Trump is talking about trade as if he's going to oppose the TPP. Donald Trump is feckless. And I think anyone in their right mind understands that Donald Trump is 100% feckless on economic and foreign policy. Therefore, Donald Trump is going to continue the exact same paradigm of Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. If Donald Trump wins, he is going to do what Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan do for him. He's going to need two nerds to go in and do his homework so he could take credit for it. Donald Trump is not going to sit in the Oval Office and convene a bunch of intellectual minds to come up with a brand new paradigm to go venture off from what President Obama has done or what Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan want to present. He's not going to do that. So he is going to take the homework from Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. With that being said, everything he's complaining about that's bad in the black community economically, his policies will further exacerbate it, period. Let's go to his next talking point. Big business, elite media, and major donors are lining up behind the campaign of my opponent because they know she will keep our rigged system in place. They are throwing money at her because they have total control over everything she does. She is their puppet, and they will pull the strings. I don't have any disagreement with that statement. Next statement. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't. I think he is, I don't think the people pulling the strings, the only analysis I would give you is this. Here's the sleight of hand. The people pulling the strings are just like him. The benefits that the people pulling the strings of Hillary Clinton want are the same benefits that he needs. And do you honestly think that Donald Trump is going to forego his personal wealth in order to do something opposite of what Hillary Clinton's puppet masters will do? No, he absolutely will not. That's the only thing I will say. So he's rightly calling out the Wall Street donors who are going to be pulling Hillary Clinton's strings. But he is the direct beneficiary of those same exact strings that are going to be pulled. You do the math. All right, next, he said, every action I take, I will ask myself. This is the good one. Watch this. This is what he's going to say tonight, allegedly. Every action I take, I will ask myself, does this make life better for young Americans in Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, Ferguson, who have as much of a right to live out their dreams as any other child in America? Everybody, a round of applause for Donald Trump. Great line. Great line, Donald Trump. Great line. Now, let's talk about, you're going to wake up and ask yourself, does this make life better? Your perception of better is what's problematic. You saying what's better is going to include more tax cuts because you believe tax cuts stimulate the economy, when we know tax cuts stimulate the economy up until a certain point, and then after that point, they no longer stimulate the economy. People hoard those tax cuts. They keep them and they don't reinvest them. We saw that with the credit crunch, where over $2 trillion of cash was just being held up, pent up potential for the economy that they were not spending. You know why they weren't spending it? Because they had a tax code that actually incentivized them sitting on it, versus a tax code that would say spend it, invest it, or we'll tax it. So Donald Trump, it's a great line. And I'm glad that you're going to wake up every morning thinking about what you can do for black people in these predominantly black cities. But what you plan on doing has been a part of the problem since at least Ronald Reagan. Probably we can go back to Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon, before all the presidents before him, starting with Richard Nixon. All right, next. Donald Trump tonight is supposed to say, as your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBT citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Round of applause one more time, ladies and gentlemen, for Donald Trump. This is a great talking point, Donald Trump, and it's going to work. First of all, let me say it's going to sound great. They're going to be great sound bites. They're going to put them on repeat. People are going to think that he's reasonable. Anybody who is thinking about possibly giving Donald Trump a chance will hear this and not inspect the statement any further, and they'll believe it. So in that regard, it's a brilliant speech. But if you look underneath what he's actually saying, it's a bunch of bullshit. And trust me, if I see bullshit in Hillary Clinton's speech next week, you know I'm going to say it too. So here it is. He's going to protect us from the violence and the oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Who's going to protect the LGBTQ community from the hateful and oppressive ideology of our domestic policies, of the RNC platform? Who's going to protect them from that? Because the RNC platform is looking to federalize Mississippi's LGBTQ laws, right? So who's going to protect them? You want to protect them from, you see, you are 100, and Republicans, conservatives, they are absolutely all about this. They are 100% on board with you being LGBT as long as they can use you as a prop against Islam. If they can use your sexual orientation and your gender identity as a prop against Islam, they are all for you. But they will defend you from terrorism, which the subtext means they're going to spend money and start more wars, spend money on the defense contractors, start more wars, and actually continue to do the things that radicalize people. So honestly, even in their attempt to protect you from terrorism, they're actually going to make you more vulnerable to terrorism, but that's a different conversation. They're going to do that, right? But that's the extent of their love for you. Because they're actually, in their platform, we'll go over in a minute, the fact that they're going to do everything they can to further oppress you. So domestic oppression is fine. It's just the foreign oppression from terrorists. That's the problem. All right. This is a good line. And I don't think I have much to disagree with him on here. He said, remember, it was Bill Clinton who signed NAFTA, one of the worst economic deals ever made by our country. Except the fact that he benefits from that deal tremendously, you know, with all of the a lot of his clothing, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of his clothing is made in Mexico. And not just his clothing, some of his benefit. Listen, the thing that I'm going to keep repeating is that anything Donald Trump says that is economic populist sounding is in direct competition with Donald Trump's bank account. And even if he says this to you, when he comes into the Oval Office and somebody says, and he says, I want to get a better deal than NAFTA, somebody's going to come and say, well, President Trump, if we do this, you're going to take a hit of about $250 million. Do you honestly think Donald Trump is going to go forward with it? If you think that, I'm not going to cuss. If you think that, you're very sadly mistaken. That's all I can say. All right, he pledges to never sign the TPP. I believe it when I see it, and his supporters will join our movement. Oh, talking about he wants to make an appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters, and I think I will talk about this a little bit. I have seen firsthand how the system is rigged against our citizens, just like it was rigged against Bernie Sanders. He never had a chance, but his supporters will join our movement because we will fix his biggest issue, trade. Whatever. You know, there are some Bernie Sanders supporters who I don't think you were ever progressive in the first place, because you cannot look at Donald Trump and believe for 1 second that he's going to do something truly progressive economically. And then even if he does, to what extent, what expense, what price are you willing to pay for your economic progressivism? Because we're not talking about people who are just manipulating identity politics for their economic goals. We're talking about somebody who wants to, and not just him, but an entire party who wants to eviscerate all the identities, who want to silence you on Black Lives Matter, who wants to legalize discrimination against the LGBT. We're not just talking about, you know, people who manipulate it and don't do anything for you economically, like the Democrats. Don't do nothing for you economically. They'll talk about LGBTQ rights all day long. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about a party who wants to go after you in hopes of the promise of an economic populism that actually is damning and damaging to President Trump's portfolio. And you believe out of that cluster F of stupidity, what do you think is going to actually happen? The only thing that's going to happen is the targeting of the LGBTQ community, women's rights, the silencing of Black lives. That's the only thing that's going to happen. All right. That's it. That's all I have for Donald Trump's speech. You'll hear him at 10:15. It's very possible Donald Trump is drunk right now, and he may very well go completely off script like he normally does. I would rather see the entertaining Donald Trump than the reasonable Donald Trump that actually could give Hillary Clinton a run for her money. I don't like either one of them, but anyway, you do whatever the hell you want to do. I'm voting for somebody who's probably not, anyway. So many tickets, so many statements I have to stop in the middle of it. 857-600. I'm voting my conscience. That's what I'm doing. I'm voting my conscience. And like Ted Cruz, I advise you to vote your conscience too. But me telling you the truth is not trying to scare you. So don't expect me not to tell you the truth for fear of you thinking I'm trying to scare you. There's no web that I can't untangle. Don't expect me to be silent on the bigotry and the homophobia and the racism and the lies of the Republican Party just because you don't want somebody to try to scare you into voting to Hillary Clinton. No, I almost called you the N-word. I'm sorry, folks. No, you do what you want to do, right? Vote for whoever the hell you want to vote for. But I'm still going to call Donald Trump out on his bullshit every single day. My job is to call out the hypocrisy and the bullshit. Your job is to vote your conscience. 857-600-0518. I got a little too comfortable. I almost went a little extra. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
Yes, hello. This is Jared again.
Hey, man. Thanks for calling back. I appreciate you sticking in there and calling back. What's on your mind?
I'd like to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. As we don't talk enough about him. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to compare Donald Trump in 2016 to Obama in 2008.
Okay, go for it.
And they're so very similar if you look at their rhetoric. Like Obama saying he was going to renegotiate NAFTA, or he wasn't going to cut Social Security, or he was going to get us out of Iraq. Mm-hmm. And all the other lies he would say. And I was 16 back then. Mm-hmm. And even I saw it through Obama back then as well, which is why I didn't even vote for him in 2012, because I was so disgusted with him. I just voted for Jill Stein. But Trump is literally the same thing. I mean, if people think, Trump is going to do anything different, they don't know how the power structure works. I mean, read up on Chris Hedges, read up on Noam Chomsky, read up on Richard Wolff, read up on Richard Epstein.
Yep.
Like, we know where the power structure lies.
Mhm.
Okay, and just like the foreign policy, it's not even ran by the president for the most part. It's probably CIA and Pentagon. So I'd like to get your take.
All right. Appreciate that call. I wasn't sure there for a second. The only thing I don't allow, well, I probably would allow it just for a good debate. Only thing I don't allow on my air is somebody advocating for Trump. And for a second there, that's where I thought you were going, but you nailed it, right? You nailed it. The fact that Obama made a lot of promises that he was not going to keep. And I think he didn't keep them for a different set of reasons, but it doesn't matter. He didn't keep a lot of promises. And I agree with you there. Donald Trump is not going to keep his economic promises because this system is perfect for Donald Trump's portfolio. And if you think he's going to do something to mess up his money, you think Melania is going to allow that? You think Ivanka's going to, and Junior, do you think they're going to allow that? Come on. If you believe that, you're a fool. So Donald Trump, even though he is a buffoon, he has been in this system and benefited from this system enough to be a part of that power structure that is going to always fight back against real economic populism and ending our empire abroad. So in a lot of ways, I agree with you. 857-600-0518. All right, let's talk about the RNC. Try to get to as much as I can in the next 15 minutes, and you can still call in. Let's talk about Cruz, Ted Cruz. So even the worst of mankind can do something right every now and then. Let's take a listen to Ted Cruz.
And to those listening, please don't stay home in November.
This is him speaking at the RNC. He's getting a round of applause. Don't stay home.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
Oh, man. Ted Cruz said, vote your conscience. And yeah, so, I mean, obviously he went to say, vote for Donald Trump. And of course, every speech is pre-screened, and he presented them a speech that said he was going to say, vote for Donald Trump. And he got up there and did not do it. And he did what he believed was right. Now, you got to consider some things. Donald Trump gave Ted Cruz some bruisings in this primary. I mean, he talked about his wife. He called his wife, basically called her ugly. He talked about his father. He talked about him. I mean, Donald Trump gave this guy a thrashing, and to see that he didn't roll over and play a good puppy, that he actually had. Ted Cruz has some backbone. That takes some nerve. To get up there. And so it got so bad that his wife had to be escorted out of the convention immediately after his speech because they were fearing for her safety. That's how crazy it got. And he was not allowed to return into the, I guess, their equivalent of the green room where all of the dignitaries and speakers were gathering. He was not allowed to return in there. And many people feel like this is because he's positioning himself to run in 2020. Obviously, because if Donald Trump loses, then there's going to be another primary coming soon. And he wants to be able to show that he resisted, even if it's passive aggressively or whatever, you guys tell me after the show how I say it correctly. Even though he resisted Donald Trump, because, I mean, the entire party has given themselves over to Donald Trump's insanity. And there's just a few holdouts of people who say they will not be a part of it. John Kasich, the Bush family, and Ted Cruz. And so even someone who I think is worse than the phlegm that fell on his mouth and swallowed in the debate I think he's more disgusting than that. Even he had a moment last night that was honorable, and he took it on the chin, and he bore it. So let me play this last little bit of them booing him, though, because it's always good to see Ted Cruz get booed.
God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
And he's still waving. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, it's John from Mississippi.
My dude, John, what's on your mind?
First of all, by far, none, the best moment of the convention.
Yeah, when he got booed?
Where Ted Cruz gets booed off the stage.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. What's on your mind, dude?
The second is that I don't know if Ted Cruz actually did the smartest thing. I get why he did it, but like, okay, so he's one position himself for 2020. Well, go and speak and don't endorse him and take the fight for that or whatever. But he didn't just do that. He egged the crowd on. He threw out that Trump line like he was going to say it.
Yeah.
He let him eat it up and think it. And he antagonized him.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to come back to bite him in the butt.
If people are as petty as I am, which I am, and people's memories, long-term memories, are as good as mine, then you're right. But I think they have a very short memory, and they are likely to forget that he treated them. I mean, hell, look at all of the previous Obama supporters who forget that it was actually Hillary Clinton who circulated the picture of him in his
I don't think if Donald Trump loses, I don't think people will forget. I think there'll be a lot of people in the Republican Party who will point to that moment and say, "You're part of the problem, not the solution."
Well, John, you bring me
and
to
I
another
think it'll
part.
Be enough to bury it.
You bring me to another part of the conversation, right? And I'll ask you this, because this is the question that I wanted to ask. You know, because I believe Donald Trump is going to lose, and I believe that Hillary Clinton is going to win. Because Jill Stein does not have enough to get there, and neither does Gary Johnson, and I'm not sure that I would want. No, I'm positive I would not want Gary Johnson. So I think Hillary Clinton is going to be our next president, saving some miraculous happenings, which stranger things have happened. Now, with that said, what will it take for the GOP to reform itself when they lose? Because what you positioned to me, or you posited to me, was that they are going to see that the people the people who didn't support Trump were the problems. Instead of looking at themselves and saying, well, maybe we went too far with Donald Trump, you're saying they're going to double down and get even more ridiculous.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because, in their minds and in their pocketbooks, if Hillary Clinton just continues in the mode of Barack Obama, they feel like they're losing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
even though they're doing fine,
you know what? It would have been better to have Trump than Clinton, because that's what they're saying now.
Yeah. Yeah. I got it, man. John, thanks so much for the call, man. I think I hear your perspective, if nothing else. 857-600-0518. If you want to join the conversation. We're running short on time, so I got to call a couple stories. When I tell you the mayor that you elect matters, and the person that the police chief that the mayor appoints, the police chief that the mayor appoints matters. Let me give you an example right here in Boston, just on the outside of the north side of Boston, in a city called Somerville, which is, close enough to me to walk to right now. So the Somerville Police Employees Association is upset with Mayor Joseph Curterton. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure I said it wrong. But so the Somerville police officers are asking the mayor to remove the banner supporting Black Lives Matter and replace it with an All Lives Matter banner. You can see it on my screen behind me. There's a huge Black Lives Matter sign hanging across City Hall in the city of Somerville. This is, taking place this week, happened yesterday. And in a letter addressed to the mayor, Somerville Police Employees Association called the mayor's support for Black Lives Matter movement deeply troubling. And I quote, "We strongly object to a public banner sponsored by the city that implicitly paints police officers as the killers of innocent citizens of color when there is no evidence whatsoever that the police officers in the city are in any way using their police power in a discriminatory or unlawful way." Well, what's the demographics of Somerville? Like 1% black? 1% black. I'm quite sure the police officers in Somerville have no problem with black people because there may be 2 in Somerville, right? So no, of course, you're not using your powers in a discriminatory way, but the mayor is not talking about the problems just in the city of Somerville. He's talking about the cities across the nation, and he's standing in solidarity with the cities across the nation. That's number one. Let me see if I have the picture of the mayor. Good looking guy. I want to put him on my screen. Hang on. No, not that. Wrong guy. That was Ted Cruz. Not him. Somerville Mayor Joseph. And I shouldn't have started to try to say his name twice. All right. So he responded. This is the mayor saying, "My unwavering support for our police officers does not and cannot preempt our commitment to addressing systemic racism in our nation." He said in a statement on Boston.com, "I've made it very clear to our officers that we should be thankful for and reinforce what we have seen here in Somerville, a safer community thanks to the highest quality policing by a force dedicated to community policing, de-escalation, proper use of force, and anti-bias awareness." Now, let me tell you something. If all this is going on great in Somerville, and it probably is, because I'm sure the demographics are just like the rest of Boston, was like, negative 2% black. Until Juneteenth, then you see about 5,000 black people, beautiful black people in one place. But then that's it. If all these great things are going on in Boston, in Somerville, and the mayor of Somerville is saying we have a motto, and not only do we have a motto, but we are in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, the mayor is saying that he wants this to spread. He wants this motto that you're doing so great in Somerville to spread across the country. But because police officers implicitly believe, they believe that if you say Black Lives Matter, you're absolutely anti-cop. Because apparently, and they don't really, I don't care if they really believe that, because it just doesn't make sense. But more than likely, it is just a prop. It is a tool. You want to use blue lives. You want to use all lives as a means of silencing people who are bringing correction to you. That's it. Because if blue lives really matter, and if all lives really matter, then you would address the overwhelming, how many white people have been killed by police officers unarmed? If they really mattered, you would address that. How many white men have killed police officers, and what? There's no uproar. There's no backlash. There's basically, you just arrest them, take them to trial, and convict them. If blue lives really mattered, then you would respond to a police officer being killed by a white man the same way you respond to a police officer being killed by a black man. It's all a game. They're all props used to silence people who are saying you have to change the way you do business. Anyone who's a challenge to the system is obviously going to be a target by that system, bottom line. All right, a couple more things. Trump's speech, the RNC platform. As we bit off him a lot tonight. The RNC platform has not been covered almost at all. I didn't even cover it till tonight. Everyone's been focused on Melania Trump's plagiarism, which was good fodder, but it shouldn't have lasted as long as it did, right? Everyone's focusing on Ted Cruz getting booed, which is great fodder, but it should have been over as quick as my segment was over, and even shorter than mine. But no one is focusing on how insane the RNC platform is. And because I'm short on time, I'm just going to run it down. On guns, they are obviously against all types of gun control. They are in favor of open carry, and they want to expand the right to bear arms in all 50 states. No big surprise there. On the LGBTQ question, they want to abolish gay marriage and nationalize Mississippi's laws allowing businesses to refuse service to LGBT people. In other words, do not allow someone to be in the protected class of citizens based on their sexual orientation or their gender identity. In other words, make sure that people can discriminate against you based on your gender identity or your sexual orientation. Trump, in his speech tonight, is going to say that he is in favor of defending you from oppression, from foreign oppression, right? Protecting you from foreign oppression. This, in the RNC platform right now that has been voted on and approved, is domestic oppression of the LGBTQ community. On women's rights, they want to make abortion illegal by making the personhood amendment, right? They want to pass a personhood amendment, essentially saying that a child, a fetus is a person entitled to constitutional rights. On war crimes, this is their favorite. They do not accept the International Criminal Court. Only the U.S. military courts will decide whether we engage in war crimes. Much like the police department, we did something, we're going to investigate ourselves, and we find ourselves innocent in our investigation of ourselves. On global warming, the environment, this is in their platform, the environment is improving against global warming and the rolling back of the environment. They're in favor in rolling back the environmental regulations. I have to take a second there, right? Because you know, our oceans our lakes rather are not flammable anymore. A lot of them good. You know, smog, you know, that was a really big thing at one time. It's definitely, you know, compared to China, we're doing great. You know, the ozone layer has been improving and repairing, right? So we are improving in category A, but there still is global warming and an overwhelming consensus in the scientific community that there is global warming. Now, he's saying the environment is improving, the RNC platform rather saying the environment is improving to give you the impression that there's really not a problem over here with global warming. And because they want to give you the impression that there's really not a problem over here with global warming, they want to then pass policies that are going to undermine all of the things that made those small improvements in the first place. It's the sleight of hand that nobody is really going to unpack. They're just going to say, wow, I didn't know the environment was improving. No, the environment isn't improving in the categories that are the most concerned right now. And by saying that the environment is improving, they're really trying to find ways to roll back regulations that they view to be overburdensome on industry, and they want to roll them back, undermining the progress that we made on the environment. Last but not least, on immigration, this is in their policy, in their platform. We support building a wall along our southern border and protecting all ports of entry. The border wall must cover the entirety of the southern border. Here's a quote from the LA Times that I like. It says, "This isn't merely a statement of Donald Trump's wacky personal beliefs. This isn't a statement written by some fringe Tea Partiers. This is a statement of the beliefs of the Republican Party, one of the two major parties in American politics. This is what the contemporary Republican Party stands for in its own words." Folks, I'm not trying to scare you into voting for anybody, but if you thought for 1 second I'm going to sit back and not point out all of the bullshit coming from the Republican Party, you really don't know me that well. We'll catch you next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.